And now, in an absolutely stunning decision, Joe Biden takes us a giant step closer to World War III. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, I'm sure most of you have heard about it. The news broke yesterday in the Washington Post and in the New York Times. They are citing unnamed sources high up within the Biden regime. The Biden administration has not denied the story. So it appears that top national security officials around Joe Biden have now leaked the information, and this was always my fear. It has always been my fear for the last 4 years that this senile, demented, now honestly spiteful, vindictive buffoon, it would get us into World War III with Russia. Well, here is now the absolute latest. North Korean troops have now entered the war between Russia and Ukraine. Thousands of them are now being mobilized to retake some territory in Russia. It's called the Kursk region. And so they've been deployed to help the Russian forces retake an area in Russia that Ukraine has annexed as a bargaining chip for final negotiations and a final settlement. Well, to up the ante, Joe Biden has now authorized Zelensky and Ukraine to launch long-range U.S.-made missiles. Very powerful missiles. They are from the ATACMS system. Those are sonar-guided, very sophisticated missiles, very powerful missiles that can reach deep inside Russia. In plain English, the Ukrainians now have the full support and green light of the United States and of NATO to strike not just deep into Russian territory, but to basically use our most sophisticated, modern long-range missiles, which the Russians will not be able to defend against. And they will be able now to hit Moscow, to hit the Kremlin if they wish, to hit St. Petersburg. In other words, this is now a declaration of all-out war. Yesterday in Russia, in Moscow, there was an emergency meeting of Putin and his top national security officials. In fact, everybody in Russia knew something was up because generally things are quiet in Russia on a Sunday. Putin's car rushed to the Kremlin, his top generals, his defense secretary. The Russian people knew right away something very important and dramatic is taking place. Now, the Russians have now said that they consider this a hostile act, an act of war, and an act of aggression by the United States and by NATO. Putin now has said all options are on the table, that he told them this was his ultimate red line, and that if they crossed this red line, the Russians would almost be forced to respond. Now, the ultimate response, and this is the response that the entire world is now fearing, frankly, that I'm fearing, is that Russia will respond with a massive nuclear or tactical nuclear missile attack on Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and God forbid, I hope, but he may hit other NATO capitals. At a minimum, he may respond with nuclear weapons, which means we are at World War III. Now, what Putin has done is yesterday he launched one of the most blistering, powerful responses of the entire war. Over 90 drone strikes, 120 long-range missile strikes, absolutely pounding Ukrainian positions, shattering Ukrainian infrastructure across much of the country. So, here is my take. You may agree, you may disagree, but this is where the Kuhner man is coming from. To me, as I pointed out on X last night, Joe Biden must be impeached. He must be impeached immediately. This is the act of a spiteful, vindictive, insane man. No sane man would have authorized this. This is putting the entire world on a collision course with World War III. And what is very obvious to me, no wonder that scumbag, everybody was wondering, why this huge grin on his face? Why was he smiling from ear to ear? In his famous meeting with Trump at the Oval Office, many people interpret it as a kind of middle finger to Kamala Harris, to the DNC, to the establishment for having overthrown him and taken away the nomination, basically a coup, several months ago, and then coronating Kamala to be his successor and replacement on the Democratic ticket. That is clearly part of it. But now we clearly realize there was a much more sinister side to this as well. What he wants to do, forget Russia collusion. Forget framing him as an agent of Russia, as they did in 2016. Forget spying on his campaign and spying on his presidency. What they are now planning is something even more, frankly, diabolical, reckless, irresponsible, and dangerous. They want to sabotage Trump's presidency with a world war. They want to saddle him with a potential nuclear war in order to destroy his presidency from the outset. And this is another way for the deep state to survive, because they believe if Ukraine and Russia are at war, and I mean nuclear war, then the military-industrial complex becomes indispensable to Donald Trump. He can't clean house at the CIA. He's going to need him now more than ever. He can't clean house at the State Department. He needs him now more than ever. He can't clean house at the NSA. He needs him now more than ever. So this is another reason why they have now made this fateful move to tell Ukraine, go ahead, we're going to give you, we've already given them, our most sophisticated advanced missiles, long-range missiles. And you can now pound Moscow, you can blow up the Kremlin, you can blow up St. Petersburg, we don't care. And they did this knowing full well that the Russians have been saying again and again and again, you start targeting our cities, you start targeting our leadership, you start threatening to blow up the Kremlin, we will have no option but to now retaliate with a massive nuclear weapon strike. And they did it anyway. Now, let me tell you exactly what needs to be done. Mike Johnson, Meager Mike, has to get off his rear end, stop going to Madison Square Garden to watch UFC fights, and follow Trump around like a little poodle looking to get some attention, always trying to stick himself into pictures. He's got to go back to Capitol Hill and do his job. He has to convene every single Republican now. In fact, he should have done it last night. And draw up immediate articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. This man is a warmongering lunatic. He's a lunatic. These are the actions of an insane, vindictive, spiteful person who wants to blow up everything because he lost the election, or his people lost the election to Donald Trump. As I told Grace last night over dinner, actually after dinner, forgive me. As I told Grace when this news broke after dinner, I said, this is the Samson option. Just bring everything down. Just bring the temple down. And that's what he's trying to do to Donald Trump. Now, Trump needs to get on the phone with Vladimir Putin now. And he needs to tell Putin, don't you dare use nuclear weapons. Don't you even think about it. A negotiated peace settlement is coming. I need you to hold your fire. And he has to get on the phone with Zelensky and say, you start using these long-range missiles deep into Russia, and I am telling you, we will cut off all funding, all weapons, all support. We will leave you at the mercy of the Russians. We're going to have a negotiated peace deal. Ukraine wants peace. Russia wants peace. Europeans want peace. The American people voted for Trump to end the war in Russia and Ukraine, and by God, we're going to get peace. But not if Biden and the war hawks have their way. What should Trump do? 6:20 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's a stunning decision, a shocking decision. It's Monday. Frankly, I had a great weekend. I'll be honest with you. The Kellys came over yesterday. We had a wonderful dinner. Spoke with Kelly, William Kelly, Mary Madeline, Ava and Ashton had an absolute blast. Really, I can't tell you what a pleasant, relaxing weekend the Kuhner man had. And then finally, the Kellys left, and I start doing my show prep. My news feed blows up. And the European media is all over this story. This is the biggest story in Europe. It's now become the biggest story in the world. According now to the New York Times and the Washington Post, unnamed senior Biden officials have now said that senile buffoon, Dementia Joe, has given the authorization, the green light for Ukraine to launch long-range U.S. missile strikes deep into Russia just before Trump comes to power. And this clearly now is going to massively escalate the war. If we're lucky, it's just going to escalate the war. And in particular, let me read to you what the New York Times and the Washington Post are reporting. Now, I normally don't cite them, but they are kind of like the Pravda and Izvestia of the Democratic Party and the Biden regime. The Biden regime has not shot these reports down. They have not disputed them. So their silence pretty much means it's true. So apparently now Biden has lifted all restrictions, barring Ukraine from using American Army Tactical Missile System missiles, ATACMS missiles, to strike targets deep inside Russia. Now, in particular, these are sonar-guided, incredibly sophisticated, powerful missiles, one of the most powerful missile systems in the entire world. Not only can they hit anywhere around Moscow or St. Petersburg or any military target, but literally could wipe the Kremlin, blow it up with one strike. The Russians are almost defenseless in terms of shooting down one of these missiles. And so, as I told Sandy, if Zelensky now goes for the kill shot and blows up the Kremlin, as he now has the ability and the authorization to do, if Putin is in the Kremlin and he's killed, the Russians will go nuclear. If Putin is not in the Kremlin and manages to survive, they still will go nuclear. And the Russians have now come out and said, this is the absolute red line. You cross this line, not only will you see an all-out war between Russia and Ukraine, and they're going to hit Ukraine with everything that they have, but what is much more dangerous and reckless is that this would be an act of war by the United States and NATO against Russia. And Putin has said, we will respond then, we'll be forced to respond with a tactical nuclear strike. So this now risks millions of people dead, a mushroom cloud over Europe, catastrophic environmental damage, all for a war that Ukrainian President Zelensky, even in an interview over the weekend, admitted that the war is lost, that the Ukrainian army is breaking apart on the Eastern Front, that morale has sunk very low, that there are massive defections among Ukrainian soldiers, and that, as he put it, we need a peace settlement. And Zelensky has now done a complete 180, at least publicly, saying he now welcomes Trump's intervention because Trump can save Ukraine by giving Ukraine peace with honor. In other words, we'll have a settlement and we keep most of our territory. So you have a losing war that even now the Ukrainians say they can no longer win. And what is Biden's response? To basically goad them, urge them, especially the rabid nationalists around Zelensky. You will not accept any defeat. You don't need to accept any defeat. We're going to give you the ability now to strike at Moscow and the Kremlin itself. Now, let me just add one other quick thing. There are now multiple media reports all across the European media and our own American media. This is coming straight from the Ukrainian media, that Ukraine now has the possibility to have what's called a nuclear dirty bomb, that they have been ferociously working on a nuclear dirty bomb that they can then just throw as a warhead onto one of these missiles. The fear is that faced with a defeat on the battlefield, Zelensky may actually try a nuclear attack on Russia, targeting a major civilian center. Putin would then respond, and all hell will then break loose. 6:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, the lines are jammed. I want to go right to the phone lines, Kuhner Country. 617-266-6868. What is to me obviously clear is that if Biden was to, the decision by Biden to take such a reckless, irresponsible action after he's lost the election, or to be more accurate, Kamala Harris lost the election, but the Dems lost the election, is an attempt by him to sabotage, essentially destroy Trump's presidency before he even gets into the office. Trump had a mandate to negotiate peace between the Russians and the Ukrainians. It was a centerpiece of his campaign. And now Biden is going to hand him potentially a world war. And that, according to Biden, the Dems and the deep state will consume and ultimately destroy Trump's presidency. Now, what Trump is going to do, I can tell you this right now. Trump, I know, is going to go on Truth Social. He is going to blast this decision by Biden because he knows how dangerous and escalatory it is. This is a massive escalation. He's going to have to address the American people. I think he's going to have to go public, urge both sides to try to stand down and say, look, 2 months, 2.5 months, whatever it is now, I'm coming. And his people have to start making a lot of phone calls behind the scenes. But as for Meager Mike, he and the Republicans have to impeach right now. And it doesn't matter whether you remove Joe Biden. It doesn't matter because some people are saying, well, Jeff, you impeach Biden, you get Kamala Harris. You impeach so that you now draw massive public attention to what Joe Biden has done. This man is clearly deranged. I'm choosing my words very carefully. For you to make this decision, you are deranged, you're insane, you're vindictive, you're spiteful, and you're criminal. No responsible leader would have told the Ukrainians, here's our missiles, our most sophisticated long-range missiles. The Russians cannot touch these missiles. And you can have your way. Deep inside Russia, hit any target, blow up Putin, blow up the Kremlin, blow up Moscow, blow up St. Petersburg. You're practically begging for World War III. Mike Johnson has to get off his rear end and draw up articles of impeachment against Biden now. Now. The Republicans and all sane people in the United States, the entire anti-war movement, and there are many Democrats who will stand with us. Many independents will stand with us and need to tell Biden, rescind that decision or we're going to impeach you and impeach you good. Where the hell are the Republicans? Because if you're waiting for Trump in 2 months, there may not be anything left to wait for. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to ruin everybody's Monday. Honestly, I was kind of looking forward to Thanksgiving next week and enjoying the next 2 months, the transition. But these are the kinds of lunatics, the kind of evil men and women that we have in power. And my greatest fear, let me end with this and I want to go to the phone lines. My greatest fear over the last 4 years has been that Joe Biden was going to get us involved into a massive global war. Whether it be with Iran, whether it be with Putin, whoever. And with 2 months left in his administration, unbelievably, there he is, making now what is one of the most dangerous, irresponsible decisions a president can ever make. And I want to stress this to all of you. The Russians are in shock. The Ukrainians can't believe he gave them the green light. The Europeans are in shock. The world is in shock. If there ever was a time to invoke the 25th Amendment, this is the time to invoke the 25th Amendment. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me ask all of you a double-barreled question. Joe Biden now has authorized the use of U.S.-made long-range missiles deep inside Russia. That means we guide the missiles. We help the Ukrainians strike their targets. It is a deliberate act of war by the United States and NATO against Russia. There's no getting around this. Should we be at war with Russia? Biden says yes. I say he's insane. And what should the Republicans and Trump do? We've got 2 months before the inauguration. What should they do? What can they do? 617-266-6868. And what the hell? Let me do the third and maybe the ultimate question. This is what the liberals have wanted really from the beginning. This is what the deep state and the military-industrial complex have wanted from the beginning. This is what the Democrats and establishment Republicans wanted from the beginning. This is what the military-industrial complex has wanted from the beginning. A U.S.-led NATO war against Russia. Should NATO and the United States now be at war with Russia over the Donbass and over eastern Ukraine? I say this is an act of folly that the world will look back in utter shame and with utter incomprehension but this is now the war they've wanted, and we are now very close to getting the war that they've planned and aimed for all of these years. Should we be at war with Russia? 617-266-6868. Finch in Oregon. Thanks for holding, Finch. You're going to kick us off, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. It's nice to talk to you. I know that I talked to you, just to sum it up, I know I talked to you like a week, maybe 2 weeks before the election day, and I said, he's going to win. And you said from God's lips to my ears, and we did it. And that is where the fun ends. We now have to fight. And all it took was over the weekend, Jeff, I saw a picture, right, on Air Force One where Trump is going to be, and it was all of the guys, right? And all that I had to see was Mike Johnson was there. He is enemy number one. And then we have Thune. And we can never get away from McConnell. Why is it that the turtle is still there? And Mike Johnson is enemy number one with this war with Russia. He is the warmonger that the Republicans want. He's the scapegoat. He's the weasel. And I will not stop until it's proclaimed, because we have faith in God. We cannot be at war with Russia. It's that simple. We have to have faith in God and not be at war with those that we are easily not the enemy to. Russia is not the enemy. It's the weasels like Mike Johnson that try to provoke war, and you could see it in that image, and that's it, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Finch. Well, look, he's owned lock, stock, and barrel by the military-industrial complex. There's no question. He's always voted for every massive Ukraine aid package. And look, that's what I've been saying. Look, as I said to Sandy when we were off air, okay, any normal Republican House Speaker worth his or her salt would have been drawing up articles of impeachment yesterday, when news broke. Imagine Newt Gingrich. If Newt, just as an example, not that Newt was this brilliant House Speaker, but I'm just saying, if Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House, boom, he'd be in front of the TV cameras this morning saying this is an act of war, this is an act of insanity, this is an act that people are going to look back upon with utter shame for years and years to come. Russia is not our mortal enemy. Russia does not pose a threat to us. We do not need to be attacking Russia. And it's time to impeach Biden before he gets us all killed. Instead, where's Meager Mike? There's no sign of Meager Mike. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You know, just trying to enjoy the victory, trying to enjoy the transition. And I got to say, Trump has made even more magnificent picks to his cabinet. And honestly, there were so many great topics I want to talk to you about this morning. Fun topics, enjoyable topics. And instead, this buffoon, Joe Biden. I mean, so basically, you know, good morning. Good morning. And we're pretty much on the cusp now of World War III. So how are you? Besides that, how are you? So here is now the absolute latest. According to the New York Times and the Washington Post, again, it has not been disputed or refuted by the Biden regime. They're citing very senior unnamed sources. Biden now, over the weekend, called Zelensky and said, okay, I'm lifting all restrictions. You have full authorization to use U.S. missiles, long-range missiles, to now strike deep inside Russia, including Moscow, the Kremlin, St. Petersburg, any other target that they wish or deem is militarily acceptable. Now, remember, this is not just handing over our missiles to the Ukrainians. We guide those missiles. we are the only ones that can help run those missile systems. So we are now openly collaborating and cooperating with Ukraine as they attack and kill Russian civilians and strike deep into Russia, destroying cities, destroying towns, destroying entire communities. So as the Russians have now come out rightly saying, this is an act of war by the United States and NATO. There is now no escaping this. The very thing that Biden said we would never do. He said we would never allow U.S. missiles and missile systems where we're guiding them, running them, controlling them. We would never allow it to happen, that it would be used against Russia, because according to Biden himself, he said that would mean we'd be at war with Russia, which would be World War III. Well, there's 2 months left before Trump becomes president, and they want to blow up his presidency, both literally and figuratively, with a world war. So the question now is, what must Trump do? And what should and what can the Republicans in Congress do to expose this act of a deranged warmonger? I believe there's 80 to 90% support against this war. 80 to 90% of Americans, those who are sane, do not want a world war with Russia. And we've got to stop it, and we've got to prevent it. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Lines are on fire. Tony in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Jeff, it's so good to hear you. Let me start by saying my wife and I saw you on Newsmax last night. You were absolutely fantastic.
Thank
you. Made
you.
all these. Yeah, everyone was agreeing with your points. One criticism, God knows I love you in a non-sexual way, Jeff, but back the camera off a little bit, Jeff. You look like the King of Croatia sitting there. You gave the meeting to the word talking heads. So, great, but back it off a little bit. Jeff, Jeff, I just wanted to say that the UN just came out and admitted the only way we make money is through wars. I mean, that's the UN, and we know that's what it's all about. We know that Trump is going after the military complex. He actually is setting it up with some of these generals, and he's got treason charges he's saying he'll put forth. And the Pentagon just admitted again that in their audits they can't account for billions of dollars. We know where those billions of dollars go. It's a shadow government. They're paying these politicians. If anyone can take care of this at this time, it's Donald Trump. He really has to let everybody know, and this is going to come out. You've been taking all this money, and that's treasonous against our country. That's why they fear Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz will go these places that nobody else will go.
Tony, do you think what's really driving this, as you pointed out, Biden has been swimming in Ukrainian money, him, his degenerate son Hunter, the whole Biden crime family, and basically this is now Zelensky calling in all his chips. He knows he's going down. The war is going badly. They've lost the war in eastern Ukraine. He's admitted so. Zelensky has said we can't win this war in eastern Ukraine. Trump is coming to power in 2 months. There's going to be a negotiated peace settlement. So he calls up Biden and says, if we're going to win this war, we're going to win it now, and I need you to give me all the firepower, these long-range U.S. missiles, guided by you, the United States. And we're gonna reduce Moscow to rubble. And Joe Biden says, okay. Is this now Zelensky calling in all his chips? In other words, we've given you all this money, Joe, you and your crime family. You don't want to get exposed? This is your last favor to us.
I agree with you. I think this is what it is. The thing they're not seeing is how powerful Russia is. Russia hasn't thrown everything at Ukraine. First of all, Putin's too smart. He knows that he could have other wars going in other places. He didn't throw his whole load at Ukraine. I mean, be honest with you, I think he's just been playing with Ukraine this whole time. If he wanted to, he could have rolled in there with weapons and troops, and he could have flattened Ukraine. Like you said something very interesting, because I just saw it on TV. You said he would never go after the churches in Kiev, and I saw pictures the other day. Every place around these churches was flattened, but those churches are still standing and protected. So he knows exactly what he's doing, and he has outplayed Zelensky, the comedian, every day.
Tony, as always, thank you very much for that call. Just super quick, because just so that you understand why that's so important. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, was actually the initial capital of the Russian state. Okay, long story. This was like 1,200 years ago. And so many of these churches in Kiev, in particular, in the capital of Ukraine, go all the way back over 1,000 years. They're one of the first churches of the Russian Orthodox Church. So for a Russian nationalist like Ukraine, that's why he's been saying, look, I don't want to flatten Kiev. Why? Because that's our history as well. That's our religious, cultural patrimony, our heritage. I don't want to blow up these churches. What are you, nuts? I mean, they're practically sacrosanct to the Russian people and to the Russian Orthodox Church. They're our first churches that we ever had. So that's why he's been holding back. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's been hitting eastern Ukraine hard. But other parts of Ukraine, he's been deliberately holding back. Putin's saying, guys, if it's open season on Russia now, you're forcing my hand. It's going to be open season on Ukraine. And this could become nuclear. We're talking mushroom clouds very fast. Very fast. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quick. Couple of texts, and I want to go right back to the phone line. This is from 603. Jeff, and it's a brilliant point. Jeff, you'll remember that Biden's Pentagon, along with NATO, proposed doing this very thing a few months ago, but Biden decided not to approve it. Putin said back then, there is no way the Ukraine military has the ability to operate such guidance systems, and that the responsibility for it would fall on NATO and the United States. Now that Trump has won the election, Biden suddenly decides to green light it. We have to see this from Putin's point of view. Not only can these long-range missiles reach targets deep inside Russia, but they have no guarantee, and this is the point, that those missiles won't be outfitted with nuclear warheads. And the Russians aren't going to chance that. All the while, we have dozens of nuclear-armed Russian submarines that are parked off of both of our shores here in America, just waiting for the go signal in order to hit high-value targets and major cities within the continental United States. Now, this is just a fact. This ATACMS system is a hypersonic missile system. It's one of the most advanced in the entire world. The Ukrainian military does not have the capability, the talent, the know-how to be able to operate this. We have to send in our troops. Okay, these are American military specialists to be able to even run these systems for the Ukrainians. So that's why Putin has come out rightly and said, this is an attack on Russia by the United States and NATO, not just Ukraine. Now, you put one dirty bomb, and Zelensky now has been working on this for months, on one of those missiles, and you could literally blow up all of Moscow. This is what I mean. Like, we're not following the war very closely. The Europeans are. Europe now is on red alert. That Biden authorized this is such an act of escalation and of such utter irresponsibility and recklessness. I'm telling you, it's criminal. It's absolutely criminal. And to do this on the eve of a massive peace conference that Donald Trump will be spearheading, in which both Zelensky and Putin have agreed to attend, in which they will end this war, makes it to me even more criminal. And the only reason why is you thought we screwed you in 2016 with the Russia collusion hoax? Ha ha! How about we screw you with an actual World War III in Russia and Ukraine? How's that, Donald? Suck on that. Yeah, you try securing the border now. You try enacting your agenda now. All you're going to be dealing with is the fallout from this massive cataclysmic war. Well, now you know why that SOB Biden all last week had this huge grin and smile on his face, like the cat that swallowed the canary. He knew the decision they were about to make. And there's poor Trump thinking, going into the White House, shaking his hand. He said, "Oh, congratulations on a victory." And Trump's like, "Wow, it actually looks like it's going to be a smooth transition. They actually accepted defeat." And there's poor Trump thinking for once in his life, he's going to get a break. Once in his life, he's going to get a break. And now this morning, he wakes up to this. 617-266-6868. Dave in Roxbury. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I wish the news was better this morning, but, Jeff, we know before Biden gave that stupid order yesterday that Putin said if any American missiles of anything ends up in Russia, he's gonna stop shooting things. And Jeff, at the same time, it's like this is gonna be Biden's Armageddon. He talked. We may be going to Jeff. This is what Armageddon's gonna end up being. And I'll guarantee that Trump is probably already on the phone making phone calls to tell Zelensky, whatever his name is, to knock it off. And Biden had no legal right to do what he did yesterday. And Jeff, with the submarines that we've known about that's not too far from here, we could have one down on Revere Beach someplace. Jeff, we're open targets. And then what's going to happen, if anything in Moscow gets destroyed because of Zelensky's stupidness, he's going to start shooting missiles this way. And the submarine could hit anything in Boston, Jeff. We're going to be screwed now because of Biden. And Biden started this whole thing years ago with his big mouth to begin with. And so now he wants to play King Victory or something because he's going to tell Zelensky to just shoot all the nuclear. Jeff, he's out of his mind.
Well, Dave, I can't show you the video. I wish I did. We have the audio. It's Biden. He's in Brazil. And he starts talking about the rainforest and climate change. And I'm not kidding. He then turns around and he just starts wandering off into the forest. You've got to see it. I'm telling you, got to see it. And it's just everyone's looking, what? He's not there. He's mentally, he's gone. So it's becoming worse and worse and worse over the last year. It's been bad for 4 years. He's been demented for 4 years. But the decline now is so marked. It is so obvious. It is so blatant. They can't hide it anymore, to the point that he's becoming an international embarrassment. And I'm saying, whatever, the people around him can so control him that they're essentially saying, as far as they can possibly say, we're now at war with Russia. And Zelensky, happy headhunting. Go ahead. Kill as many Russians as you want. Kill Putin if you want. Blow up his government if you want. blow up Moscow if you want. Go ahead. Happy hunting. It's mind-blowing. It's something we're going to have to study this from years from now and ask ourselves, what happened to the military-industrial complex that they lost their collective minds? Because the Donbass, which you actually concretely what they're fighting over, is not worth the bones of a single American soldier. Never mind, God forbid, an all-out war with Russia. You're right. These people are insane. They're insane. Thank you very much, as always, for that call, Dave. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Vince, a big fan of the show. He's out now in Florida, was here in Massachusetts, and this is what he texted me just a couple minutes ago. Jeff, Biden was smiling at the White House last week when he met Trump because he knew he was going to do this with Ukraine and then step down and turn it over to Kamala Harris as a final FU to her. Interesting. Interesting. In other words, you wanted to be president? Well, here, let me resign. And for the last month or two of your presidency, you deal with this mess, Kamala. See, I don't even think he's going to resign. I think he's that far gone. I think he's that vindictive. I think this is more aimed at Trump than it is at her. He wants Trump to now inherit a quagmire, a global disaster. Look, it's not just millions dead. You're talking about a world in depression. If there's a world war between Russia and Ukraine, in other words, I'm talking actual nuclear exchanges, the European economy is decimated. The European atmosphere is decimated. You're talking millions of lives. You're talking about nuclear radiation. It'll collapse the world economy. Never mind the incredible environmental and the human toll that this is going to take. So it's the ultimate screw you to Trump. Burn the whole damn planet down. Burn everything down just to make his presidency a failure. 617. I've always said this. We have to pray that we can get to January 20th. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Vince, speaking of Europe, in Deutschland, in Germany. Vince, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Jeff. How are you?
Well, I mean, I was good this weekend until I heard the news. Vince, I always am interested in your take. You know that. But before you give us your personal take, what is it like on the ground in Germany and across Europe? How are people taking this news? What's the reaction down there?
They're taking it like they take it in the United States. What are the top 10 feeds on Twitter last night? What were they, Jeff? They were the NFL. I mean, it's just business as usual. I don't think anyone's really dialed in on it. But I'm here to tell you, I talked to my aunt last night, and if anybody knows the people on the bridge are always waving the signs, she is known as Lady Di. And they were clinking the champagne glasses, and I told her, I'm like, do you think these people are going to go peacefully? I mean, they're talking charges for treason. What is the penalty for treason? It's death. So do you think these people in the Pentagon are just going to go peacefully, Jeff? Do you really believe that? They have a plan, and that plan is to not only scuttle Trump's presidency before it even gets off the ground, but to plunge us into a third world war to save their own necks. And that's what I think. That's what Vince thinks.
Vince, what would you, if you were urging or advising Republicans, what should they do now to block this or head this off at the pass?
You know, Jeff, I hate to be a gadfly. You know what I mean? I really do.
Vince, please hang on. I'm up against a hard break. Vince is going to tell us what he would recommend that Republicans do, if there's anything they can do. More next. 7:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Dementia Joe. I mean, either you laugh or you cry, you know? I mean, I'd rather laugh, seriously. So we got about basically now 2 months before the inauguration, okay? Basically, well, 2 months and a couple days. And boy, oh boy, I'll be praying every day to get us there. Joe Biden yesterday has now authorized, given the green light to glory to Ukraine, to the Zelensky regime, to launch long-range U.S. missiles deep inside Russia. These are the most sophisticated solar-guided missiles that we have. Sorry, sonar, my bad. Sonar-guided missiles that we have. Only the American military can operate them, can run them, can control them. So it is obvious we are now at war with Russia. Putin now has called an emergency meeting of his entire security staff. This was yesterday in the Kremlin, and basically has responded with a massive missile drone attack all across Ukraine. But he now says the nuclear option is on the table. As far as Russia and the Russian people are concerned, Russia is now at war with the United States and with NATO. So my question to you, double-barreled question, do you believe we should be at war with Russia? And number two, do you support allowing Ukraine to use our long-range missiles to target Moscow, the Kremlin itself, and other Russian civilian populations across Russia? And what should Trump and the Republicans do to stop it? 617-266-6868 is the number. Let's go right back to Vince in Germany. Vince made the very compelling point that Biden and his backers and supporters, the deep state, these are criminals. Many of them are going to go to jail in the Pentagon, and people around Biden, they are not going to go down without a fight. They want to plunge us into World War III to scuttle Trump's presidency, but also to keep themselves from going to jail. Please, Vince, pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Jeff. So, like I said, all bets are off. All options are on the table. I tell you, if I was Trump, what I would do is I would tell Zelensky, you fire those missiles and you're a dead man. We will turn you over to the Russians once this thing is over. We will give you to them. That's what I would tell him. There's no mansion in Miami. There's no safe haven to Switzerland. We will turn you over to the Russians to face retribution from them. Now, my concern is them scuttling the Congress and the Senate, scuttling Trump's administration before it even gets off the ground. They could turn around and impeach Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and who's left in the wings? You got Mike Johnson, and then, oh, wait a minute, Secretary of State is who? Warmonger Marco Rubio. That's what we have. You know what I'm saying, Jeff? I mean, we got 63 days. If I was Trump, I would make an address to the nation right now. I would put it all out there. Tell the people what we're in jeopardy of. Because if he doesn't do that, these people are going to use every back channel they can to plunge us into World War III. And then Putin's going to do what he has to do to protect the Russian people, because it'll be Putin's neck if he allows it to happen and doesn't retaliate.
Vince, as always, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, I mean, we're in very choppy waters, as they say. And I think Trump needs to make a public statement. I agree with Vince. He's got to go at Mar-a-Lago and address the media, address the world, address the American people. I think his intermediaries need to make phone calls behind the scenes. And I think he's got to get on the phone with Mike Johnson and say, look, Mike, you got to marshal Republicans in Congress. They got to say this is an impeachable offense. Either Democrats invoke the 25th Amendment, or we're going to put this on the House floor and we're going to make it the biggest issue in the country for the next 2 months. Let the Democrats try to defend this. After the mandate that Trump just received for peace between Russia and Ukraine, after Zelensky says he wants peace, after Putin says he's ready for a peace deal, the Europeans are ready for a peace deal, and you now want to dangerously escalate and potentially trigger World War III? Trump and the Republicans need to put Biden on defense immediately and blow this issue up on Capitol Hill and force Biden to back down. That's the only way right now. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I'm going to take more of your calls, I promise. The news broke yesterday. It is sending shockwaves across the world. Joe Biden has now given Ukraine the full green light to use American long-range missiles to target Russia deep inside its territory. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text us 70470. And as always, you can email or message the Kuhner Man on Messenger. And this is a superb message I just got from Marianne a couple minutes ago. Good morning, Jeff. Is this really Biden making these decisions? Or is it people just telling him what he needs to say? The Biden crime family has so many secrets that Zelensky is keeping. This reeks of Hunter, Jill, and maybe even Biden's brother. I'm not sure that Joe is sane enough anymore to know what's even going on around him. Their whole family reeks of continual criminal activity. And the secrets that Zelensky is keeping affects all of them. This whole thing is nothing but keeping those secrets from start to finish. Do I believe they want to sabotage Trump and his presidency? Of course. And I think that would be a secondary benefit to them. But mostly, they want to keep their criminal activity hidden. And then she makes just a quick addendum, and she adds, Jeff, and this is very true, go back now over 2 years ago, if you can. I also remember when this war started, that Biden said it was only going to last about 2 weeks. We all knew that was a huge lie. Bingo. It was just like COVID. Remember? 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Just 2 weeks. Take 2 weeks. What's 2 weeks? And 2 weeks became 2 years. The same thing with the Russia-Ukraine war. 2 weeks. This thing is... Putin will be defeated in 2 weeks. I just need your support for 2 weeks. And it just keeps going and going. And forget going and going. Now we're on the verge of going nuclear. And so Marianne's theory is, yeah, they want to sabotage and blow up Trump's presidency, but that's not the primary purpose. Zelensky has him over a barrel. Zelensky is blackmailing them. Biden's got 2 months left in his presidency, and now Zelensky's calling in all of his chips. You want to keep all your stuff secret? You want to keep all your criminal activities hidden? All of the bribery, the corruption, the pay-to-play, the influence peddling, the millions and millions and millions we sent you, to you and to Hunter and to Jimmy and to Frankie and to everybody. Well, send us those missiles and give us the green light to basically blow up the Kremlin. Well, that's what Biden did yesterday. 617-266-6868 is the number. Jimmy in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I was praying that you would be going to the White House, Trump, to invite you, because you're heard across the whole United States, and you are his main man, and I was praying that you, your wife, and your children would be there to see Trump. But the way everything's going, Jeff, what you just said about Zelensky and his family, I want to say something about that, because I'm going to shock you with what I'm going to tell you. But first, I want to ask you, Kurtz, they have Russian troops in there, and it's in Russia, and they have Ukrainian. But who else is there, Jeff?
Well, North Korean troops.
Right. If you look at your computer today, you're going to be in shock, because the mad midget is going crazy. He said if anything happens there, he's sending 100 troops. And you were talking about the subs on Russian subs on the East Coast, West Coast. If there is a nuclear war, which it could probably happen, Jeff, who's going to hit us on the West Coast? North Korea. Who's going to hit us on the East Coast? Russia. But who's the mother that protects its babies, meaning North Korea? China.
Well, that's the fear. I mean, Jimmy, absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. That's the fear, is you've got Russia now has become essentially a junior partner of China. North Korea is a protectorate of China's. So you've got North Korean troops now involved, Russian troops involved. The Chinese are funding and arming this entire war on behalf of Russia. Jimmy, I don't want to, get into this so into the weeds. People get, they lose the thread. South Korea, our ally, South Korea, has now said, well, if North Korea is sending thousands of troops, we're going to send thousands of our troops into Ukraine so we can start killing North Korean troops. So, and now you've got the United States and NATO saying, no. If we have to even potentially go nuclear, we'll go nuclear. So this is World War I all over again. If you remember World War I, Serbia, Austria, attacks Serbia, Serbia attacks Austria. Before you know it, Russia is backing Serbia, Germany's backing Austria, then France and Britain are backing Russia, and then the Ottoman Empire is backing Germany, and everybody's at each other's throats. And that's why the goal from the beginning has been to limit the war, contain the war. Don't let the war escalate and get out of control. What Biden has now done is he's pouring gasoline on that fire, and now it's pretty much out of control. The only one now that can control it, contain it, honestly, is Donald Trump. And he's got to talk to Putin. He's got to talk to Zelensky. I don't know what tricks he has in his hat, but he's going to have to start. I don't know what he can entice them with. And, Jimmy, the criminal thing about all this is you had Zelensky finally agree there has to be a negotiated settlement. We need a peace deal. We can't win this war. He openly said it. Putin, who's winning the war, said, why should I go to the table? Well, Trump exerted so much pressure on Putin through China because he basically told the Chinese, you want a trade war, or if you don't, then you better tell your boy Putin to get to the table. So the Chinese Xi put pressure on Putin and said, no, you're going to go to the table. So he gets Putin and Zelensky to come to the table. And all they got to do now is wait for Biden to leave office. And so what does Biden do? He basically throws a grenade and just tries to blow the whole thing up by giving the green light to Zelensky now to use these supersonic, hypersonic, long-range U.S. missiles with a U.S. delivery system operated by U.S. analysts and U.S. members of the military. So it's basically a U.S.-Ukraine attack on Russia that can strike Russia at will. And if you put a nuclear warhead on it, the Russians would have no idea. Either conventional or nuclear. That's why the Russians are saying this is so unacceptable. They go, within 2 minutes, Moscow could be wiped off the face of the earth and we wouldn't even know it. That's why Putin had to call an emergency meeting yesterday. So when I read it, I couldn't believe it. I said, nobody can be that reckless, that stupid, that irresponsible. But that's Joe Biden, or that's the people controlling Joe Biden. Jimmy, will cooler heads prevail? Do you think Trump can keep world peace? Or is Biden now determined to hand him a world war? What do you think?
This is what I was going to say to the second one about his family, Jeff. Do you know in 2022, this war would have been avoided? Russians were moving their troops out. They already had made a deal, Zelensky and Putin. But guess who interfered? Biden sent Boris Johnson, the leader of Britain, there to squash the whole deal. All these troops that died on the Russian side and on the Ukrainian side could have been avoided. He has blood on his hands, Biden.
Jimmy, you're completely right. They had signed a deal in Turkey. Both sides had initialed and signed the deal. It was like 2 weeks into the war. And Biden sent then Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and he told the Ukrainians, you're going to tear this thing up. You're going to tear this deal up. And he promised them, you're going to win the war. And they're like, how are we going to win the war against Russia? They go, we're going to give you unlimited aid. Unlimited. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, however long it takes. And everybody in that room began to see dollar signs in their eyes. Ding, 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 ding. And that's when they realized, they're going to be willing to pour in $200, $300, $400, $500 billion? Oh my God. We're going to become oligarchs overnight. And Jimmy, just so that you know, it's official now. The Pentagon has failed 7 consecutive audits. Our Pentagon, our military industrial complex, has failed 7 consecutive audits. There are billions and billions of dollars. It's open. The Pentagon now admits it. Billions of dollars unaccounted for. Unaccounted for. Right. Well, where are these billions of dollars? We don't know. What do you mean you don't know? We don't know. They're gone. What do you mean they're gone? They're gone. No. I'll tell you where they are. They're in Kiev, where the money's getting laundered. And then the kickbacks are coming to Washington, D.C., to all of these sleazeball politicians. They're stealing our money. 7:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You know what I find absolutely amazing is you have where's Bernie Sanders? Where's AOC? Where's the anti-war left? Where's Code Pink? Where are all of these supposed people who claim to be part of the anti-war movement, who have been lifelong progressives, liberals, Democrats, and all of a sudden now, when it comes to a nuclear war, and we are now on the cusp of a nuclear war, make no bones about it. All right, let's not kid ourselves. This decision by Biden puts the world on the brink of World War III. And they're silent. That's just what I find mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-blowing. AOC is silent. Cindy Sheehan is silent. Jane Fonda is silent. Ilhan Omar is silent. Bernie, where's Elizabeth Warren? Where's the chief? Bernie's silent. They're all silent. Have you noticed that? Nobody says a thing. So the United States now is not just orchestrating, authorizing, and approving the use of aggressive long-range missiles to hit Russian targets. By the way, never throughout the entire Cold War was anything remotely close to this in terms of a hot war between the United States and Russia. If this was during the Cold War, this thing would have ended 2 years ago. But now we have American advisors, American troops in Ukraine that are now going to be running these guidance systems, picking the targets for the Ukrainians, using our satellite technology to control and guide these missiles as they hit Moscow, St. Petersburg, very likely the Kremlin. And you think the Russians are just going to sit back and say thank you very much? You think they're going to sit back and say, give me another shot of vodka? It's no problem. Vladimir is no problem. He like being punching big. No worry there, my friend. You think that's what's really going to happen? Nazdrovye, let's have another drink. The Russians are going to not just strike out at Ukraine, they're going to strike out at NATO. And so the very thing that the left said Trump would plunge us into, Biden is now on the verge of plunging us into World War III. And the anti-war movement, silent. MSNBC, silent. CNN, silent. All of them, absolutely, completely and utterly silent. This is, to me, the most remarkable transformation of the last 3.5, 4 years. How the anti-war left have now become shills for war and for the military-industrial complex. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Bob in Medford. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, thank you for having me. 2 big points. Joe Biden is a very dangerous man, darker than you can ever imagine. I talked about that. My new book, The Camelot Murders, available on Amazon. I think he's a deep occultist. Second big point, if we replace him with the 25th Amendment, I don't think we get anything any better. And the people have rejected Kamala Harris utterly, and we have got other constitutional powers our founders gave us. The important thing to do is not conflate the politics, because it's going to be a difficult thing, but have an understanding that the constitutional cure allows us to have Trump, Vance, in the White House by 5 o'clock today. And the way that works is the Senate would pick the vice presidents, which this case would be Senator Vance, Vice President-elect Vance. The House would pick Trump as the speaker, the way Matt Gaetz had attempted. He would be speaker for 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, to vote on the impeachment articles for Biden-Harris. And then you have something that actually can roll out to be an actual successful solution to this problem. So what do you think about that?
Well, Bob, that's very complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces there to accomplish what you're talking about. I'm a bit more straightforward than you are. What I just like to see the Republicans do is stomp their feet, go in front of a camera, make the American people aware of what's going on, because I think Vince in Germany made a very good point, and he's right. You go on X, like I went on X last night, and it was all Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, and by the way, that was an excellent game. I managed to catch the last quarter of that game. That was a very good game. I had guests over. I had Kelly and her children over. We had a wonderful time. And when they left, I said, hey, let me just look at Ashton's into football. So I said, hey, let's watch a little bit of the football. And it was a great game. I'm not saying it wasn't a great game. But then I went on my computer and I started to show prep, and I'm like, holy mackerel. Now, my point just is, most of the American people have no clue what Biden has just decided. In Europe, this is a massive story. Because if there's a nuclear war, it's going to hit them first. So in the world media, it's a big story. In the European media, it's a red alert story. But here in America, it's Hollywood, it's the latest movies that are coming out, it's the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, and, the Patriots lost by a touchdown. So they're sleepwalking right now. They're not awake of what's going on. If Republicans were to at least start yelling and screaming and just even threatening articles of impeachment, in other words, what's going on? And then explain to the American people what Biden just did, I think the blowback, the backlash would be so huge, so ferocious, so overwhelming, he would have to back down. Because I'm telling you, then the Democrats would lose the entire country. I also think, and Trump will do this, Trump is going to go Thunderdome on Truth Social. He's going to go to social media. Elon Musk is going to go to social media. I guarantee it. Okay? I guarantee it. But I think he needs to hold a speech today at Mar-a-Lago, an address to the entire country, and say, look, this has to be rescinded. And if it's not rescinded, and if Kamala agrees, then take them both out. Let Mike Johnson become president for 2 months. Not that I trust him, but Mike Johnson needs to rescind this. In other words, he's got to let the public know the danger now that we're all in. It's almost like a novel. You have a deranged, insane, vindictive president who has now lost everything. He is corrupt up to his eyeballs. And now he's basically given the green light, unleashed the chain of events for World War III and a nuclear war. And you've got an agent who spotted this and now is trying to stop it. Art is starting to mimic life. That's what we're facing right now. So all I'm saying is Republicans need to go on the political warpath, and Republicans from 0 to 10, 10 being the most loudest noise you can make, they need to be at 11 right now in terms of driving this story to the American public. And the American public is going to say, what? And what Trump needs to say, and say, look, I can't divulge personal, private conversations, but I can tell you this. Zelensky has agreed to a negotiated settlement at a peace conference. Putin has agreed to a negotiated settlement at a peace conference. Now, the terms haven't been decided yet, obviously, but they asked me to be the mediator. This blows up the entire peace conference. This may blow up millions of people. Biden is sabotaging world peace. I will not allow him to sabotage world peace. And if Trump does this, this could really blow up in Biden's face and the people around him. But you can't sleepwalk into World War III. And that's been my fear for the last 4 years. And notice, he did it on a Sunday in the dead of night. That's when he issued this order. While everybody else is, everyone's talking Thanksgiving, the holidays, early Black Friday, the NFL, new batch of movies coming out. Honestly, we're talking about RFK, Pete Hegseth, Matt Gaetz, his new cabinet picks. Everybody's distracted. And that's when Biden dropped his bomb. Pardon the pun, but it's a nuclear bomb. That's what he just dropped. So the Republicans need to get their act together. If not, Bob, I fear the worst. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I fear the worst. 617-266-6868. Bob, as always, thank you for that call. Tommy in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. It's good to be back in the good old U.S. of A. I spent 2 months over in the Philippines. Beautiful. And just for the record, my fiance got her fiance visa approved. So.
Oh, congratulations, Tommy.
Yeah. Praise the Lord. Thank you. So anyway, By the way, for the last 4 years, you have been a lighthouse for me personally. What the establishment did to Trump to try and bankrupt him, put him in prison, try to assassinate his character. One of my classmates said to me, he goes, Donald Trump doesn't care about a guy like you, a retired electrician. He's wealthier beyond your imagination. And I threw it back in his face that, something? I remember my grandmother talking from West Virginia about FDR and how he was a rich man, but he connected with the common man in this country, whether you liked his policies or not. So didn't JFK, so didn't RFK, so didn't Bill Clinton. And Donald Trump has that about himself. Yes, do Donald Trump and me have anything in common? No, he grew up privileged, but he also appreciates working people like myself. And that is the problem with the Democratic Party, that the coastal elites look down on people like me. And they look down, and now we're seeing how they really feel about black men and Latino men, as well as the 9% of black women that voted for Donald Trump. They stepped off the Democratic plantation, and now they're being vilified. But anyway, getting back to Ukraine, no, you taught world history at some college in D.C., correct?
No, I taught at McGill University in Canada, the Harvard of the North.
Okay, fine, all right. And you brought up the fact about World War One,
Yes.
how and we could have a domino effect with regards to this. And the other fact that this is news to me when I turned on RKO this morning about Biden, and now you bring up the fact that he does it on a Sunday night when no one's paying attention. Where are the progressives that are the same people that said no blood for oil 20 some odd years ago with George Bush, George W. Bush? These are the same people that praise Liz Cheney, that were calling her father a Nazi, a war criminal, and a racist. I don't know what's happened in this country, but there's just a psychosis that's going on people on the American left, where can't you critically think anymore? And do you really want to have another war in Europe, where we had two of them in the last century, that God knows how many men, how many tens of millions of people died over an unnecessary situation? And these are the same people that tell me Donald Trump is Hitler, that Donald Trump is going to bring Jews back into the ovens. I don't know, Jeff. Anyway, I just want to thank you for the last 4 years of you being that lighthouse out in the harbor of where stay focused, don't get discouraged, and I see better things happening for this country. So
I agree. Tommy, thank you, my friend. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for that. I agree. Look, we just got to get him in power. We just got to get Trump inaugurated. We've got basically, 63 days, 2 months. Let's not quibble over 3 days. But basically, we've got 2 months. That's what we've got. And, I mean, it's tripwire now after tripwire after. You can see what they're trying to do. they're trying to really, look, they want to undermine and blow up Trump's presidency. They did it the first time, and now they're going to do it again. And my fear is, and this is what it looks like, they're going to saddle him now with a mother war. I mean, something beyond anyone's imagination. And let's be honest, the Europeans, Western civilization, the world, us, Americans, we need another World War III, another world war. Like we need a hole in the head. And again, for what? I keep asking everybody, for what? When everything is said and done, if this thing, God forbid, ever goes nuclear, what were we fighting and dying for? For Donetsk? For Luhansk? For places in eastern Ukraine that nobody could find on a map? That have absolutely no vital, strategic, national, economic, political interest to the United States of America. None. I mean, literally none. Over territory that have been contested by Russians and Ukrainians going back over 1,000 years. And we're going to potentially blow up Europe and the world and have millions of people massacred and killed in some kind of a nuclear strike, a mushroom cloud over that? It's, when you think back, it's madness, but it's really about corruption and money. The military-industrial complex, their appetite is insatiable. And the Biden crime family, insatiable. And Zelensky and his cronies, insatiable. And now we're staring at peace. And the warmongers don't want peace because it's bad for business. And look, let's be clear. Everybody knows already. We pretty much know who's going to be in his cabinet. Here, just take the energy secretary that he just picked. This guy who basically invented shale fracking. We're looking at $1.80 a gallon gas. You're going to see gas prices completely plummet under Trump. You're going to fill up your car on $35-40. Your energy bills are going to go down 50, if not 75%. I mean, you can see he's going to secure the border. He's going to start deporting millions of illegals. I mean, he will fix the economy. He will fix immigration. He will fix the border. He will make us not just energy independent, but energy dominant. He's going to lower crime. He's already was setting up ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Already now, the Saudis, I don't know if you heard about this, the Saudis have now given olive branches to Israel, saying now that Trump's in power, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. Abraham Accords 2.0. Let's make a huge comprehensive peace settlement across the Middle East to really contain and box in Iran. So the guy was, 10 days, 2 weeks since he's been elected? And already we can see the outlines of his presidency and that it would be immensely successful. To sum it up, peace and prosperity. We're staring at peace and prosperity. And there's Joey. There's Joey. So what's he going to do now? Let's hit Moscow. Let's reduce the Kremlin to rubble. That's my answer. Blow the whole damn thing up. Now, either this man is insane. I don't care. Door one. Door two, Zelensky has him over a barrel and is blackmailing him and saying, yeah, the $250 billion, it was nice, Joey. But now, Joey, you're going to be out in 2 months. No, Joey. We now want Moscow. We want ATACMS. The big long-range missiles. I want to blow Vladimir Putin up. You give it to me now. Okay, Joey? So either he's so corrupt, so co-opted, that the Ukrainians are pulling his strings, and this is their last demand. They're calling in their last chip.
or the military-industrial complex and the deep state, and this would be brilliant on their part, diabolical but brilliant. Hey, you know what? Let's blow up Trump's presidency. Well, how are we going to do that? Start World War III between Moscow and Kiev. Let the Russians and the Ukrainians have a limited war, a limited tactical nuclear war. Well, but millions are going to die. It's going to destroy the economy of the world. It's going to lead to, environmental damage and radiation. No, it doesn't matter. It'll be World War III, and it'll sink Trump. It'll consume and sink Trump's presidency. Aha! He won't be able to touch us then. Your reaction next. 821 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can text us 70470. 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, the Biden family crimes have been exposed. The deep state is about to be routed. And suddenly, we're on the brink of World War III. They want to keep our hair on fire, distracted by panic, as they gear up the military-industrial complex while drooling over the prospect of the profits. The love of money is the root of all evil. This is insidious. Oh, there's no question. There's no question. One of the major reasons why what they call the shadow government or the ruling class, the uniparty, whatever term you want to use, okay, the deep state, the shadow state, the reason why they were so adamantly opposed to Donald Trump, and many of them were open and honest about it, he's going to wind down these wars. And if he winds down these wars, they're not going to be making money. And so the war profiteers, those big corporations, big defense corporations with their lucrative contracts, all of their lobbyists up on Capitol Hill, we're talking about $1 trillion business. And Trump was just going to pull the plug on the whole thing. Well, you can't pull the plug if you've got World War III raging. In fact, you can't do much if you've got World War III raging. And so that's why if I'm Donald Trump, you got to start making phone calls. Calls to Zelensky, calls to Putin, frankly, calls to Biden, and calls to Mike Johnson and John Thune. And say, look, guys, I don't care how you do this, but you got to block everything going on in Congress, and you got to get in front of these cameras, and you got to awaken the American people and force Biden to back down. And if that means drawing up articles of impeachment, you do what you got to do. And I will deliver a speech at Mar-a-Lago. I will address the world, not just the country, but the world, and say we now stand on the precipice of a World War III, of a third world war, because of this demented, insane, vindictive buffoon in the White House. I have a mandate for peace. I don't have a mandate for a nuclear war. And the American people want this war to end. The Ukrainian people, the Russian people, Europeans, everybody wants this war to end. And what Biden has now done is he has triggered a potential chain of events that may lead, God forbid, to American missiles being fired by American operators and American military that could potentially not just blow up Moscow and St. Petersburg, but literally wipe out the Russian leadership and blow up the Kremlin. And if this happens, the Russians will respond with a devastating nuclear counterattack. And then the whole world is in big trouble that you can never walk back from. So the adults are going to be back in charge. And someone needs to put a diaper on Joey and send him to his room with no supper. Because if we don't, we're all going to pay the price. So Trump is going to have to address the country. I think he's got no question now. So, and I think Elon Musk, I think this is Tulsi Gabbard's moment because she's been anti-war her entire career. RFK Jr. And remember what RFK said. Again, this proves the judgment and the intelligence of RFK. He said, I'm asking all of my supporters to vote for Trump on the Ukraine issue alone. We have to vote for Trump because he is the peace candidate. Harris and Biden are the pro-war candidates. And we're not talking about Iraq or Syria or Libya or Afghanistan. We're talking now about a war with the greatest nuclear armed power in the world. Remember, Russia has the most nuclear weapons in the world. So a war with Russia is automatically a World War III. And that's what Biden is now potentially putting us on a collision course towards. So my question to you, do you support Biden's decision? And what should Trump do, if anything, to stop it? On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. Okay, I hate to ask this question. I really do. But in the light of Biden's stunning, shocking, reckless decision yesterday, I got to ask. So it's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Will World War III start before Trump gets into office? We've got basically 63 days left to go. Okay, 2 months. Do you think World War III will start before Trump gets into office? A, yes. B, no. Well, Biden is doing everything in his power to make it an A, yes. That's all. I mean, either you laugh or you cry. But man, oh man, I got to tell you, Joey, remember what Obama called him? That was his nickname, the F-up. This is the mother F-up. This is the mother of all F-ups. He wants to F up the whole world. And so he's going to, come hell or high water, he's going for it. So do you think we will have World War III before Trump even gets into office? A, yes. B, no. I'm praying for no. I'm praying for B. But after yesterday, I'm getting worried that it could be A. So that's my answer if you want to know the truth. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. And as always, you can vote on X. I'm very active on X. In fact, I was sounding the alarm last night about Joe Biden's decision now to give Ukraine the full authorization and green light to now launch long-range U.S. missiles guided by us, controlled by us, directed by us, deep inside Russian territory. As the Russians said, this is an act of war by the United States and NATO. And from this point forward, Russia is now at war with America and NATO. You can vote on my X account, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn is in national ER. Now, as you know, Tulsi Gabbard has been chosen by Donald Trump to be this next director of national intelligence. She has been one of the leading lights saying we've got to wind down this war between Russia and Ukraine, because the repercussions of this could be literally planet altering. This could go nuclear fast. And so she said there is a solution. There is a peace deal that could be made, but there has to be a will for peace. And for this crime, she has been smeared, defamed, slandered, and vilified. Listen now, Hillary Clinton called her a Russian agent, and now frequently the liberal media refer to her as either a Russian asset or a Russian agent. Listen now to Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz on MSDNC. Roll cut 17, Mike.
Tulsi Gabbard is someone who has met with war criminals, violated the Department of State's guidance, and secretly, clandestinely went to Syria and met with Assad, who gassed and attacked his own people with chemical weapons. She's considered to be essentially, by most assessments, a Russian asset, and would be the most.
Is that how you
dangerous...
consider her? Is that what you consider
yes.
her?
Oh yes, there's no question.
On what evidence? Look how they just smear people like this. And by the way, these are the same left-wingers that go on about McCarthyism. Oh, Joe McCarthy. Oh, my God. Oh, the lives he destroyed. Oh, my God. All of these baseless accusations that he threw against people. These people are worse than anything McCarthy ever did. Where's your evidence that she's a Russian agent? Where's your evidence that she's a Russian asset? Show me a speck, a scintilla of evidence. No, this is just smear, 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 smear. Libel, 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 libel. Because they can't defend their position, which is that endless war in Ukraine is not in America's interest, and endless war in Ukraine will inevitably lead to a nuclear war, a nuclear showdown. And so rather than dealing with the anti-war arguments, which are frankly irrefutable, all they know how to do is Russia, Russia. That's all. It's just defamation. That's it. That's all they know. But it's not just Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It's not just Hillary Rotten Clinton. It's not just Alexandria Fidel Castro Cortez, another liar and smear merchant. They got this guy, Joe Walsh, this never Trump Republican, this phony, this fraud. Listen now to this clown. They stick him now on MSNBC. Roll cut 18, Mike.
The scientists and experts are the health experts. They are the enemy. This is like a revenge against the Dr. Fauci's when it comes to RFK Jr. But Tulsi Gabbard, the best you can say about her is she's a Putin cheerleader. That's the best you can say. You put her in charge of our intelligence, it's all about revenge for what Russia did in 2016.
It's unbelievable. So here's what they're saying now. You put her in charge of Director of National Intelligence. Well, that's like just handing over all of our intelligence to Putin. You know, to the successor to the KGB. They call it the FSB. To the FSB. FSB now, they're on American CIA. They're on American intelligence. It's all through FSB now. Why? We have compromised. We have Tulsi Gabbard. Have you paid her any money? Niet. Well, have you given her anything? Niet. So why do you claim she's a Russian asset? Liberal media say that. Anybody who want peace in Ukraine is a Russian asset. That's now the new, how you say, hit job. That's how you go after people in America. You know use facts. You know use arguments. You know use logic. What you do is you just scream Russia. And the dumb moonbats, they believe it. I mean, I'm telling you, these people are insane. So, okay. Now, the left, the Democrats, and the neocons. By the way, Liz Cheney must be ecstatic. Okay, happier than a pig in mud. This Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, and the neocons have been calling for this now for, my God, for at least a year. So, unleash U.S. long-range missiles, in particular the ATACMS system, this hypersonic missile system, and just reduce Russia to rubble. Rubble. And so they have been begging, itching for a war with Russia. Well, they wanted their war with Russia. Now they're going to get their war with Russia. 617-266-6868. Dan in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. This is Nurse Dan. Jeff, this was the plan all along. It's not about Biden. It's much bigger than that. Your audience can go on YouTube and they can listen to a candidate forum that I had with Bill Keaton, and Bill Keaton said aloud on October 29th, he said that the war is not between Ukraine and Russia. He said it's our war against Russia, and that we have paid Ukraine to fight our war. He called the $250 billion a bargain, Jeff. He said the alternative is to send our young men and women over to Europe and fight and die. This is the plan all along. The warmongers in Congress, the warmongers in the Pentagon, the warmongers on Wall Street, they want forever wars. They do not want peace. And what Trump needs to do is he needs to address the world, announce, his position, offer himself up as the Prince of Peace, and then Elon Musk needs to announce that if Ukraine launches one missile into Russia, he's going to turn off Starlink. He's going to shut down their internet service. This is Bill Keaton said out of his own lips. Bill Keaton said, peace is tantamount to surrender, and if we cut off funding to Ukraine, Russia wins, and we cannot allow that to happen. This is not about Joe Biden. This is about the puppeteers who have been behind this administration for the past 4 years, and quite honestly, for the 12 out of the last 16 years.
Dan, dynamite. Honestly, dynamite. Look, Congressman Keating is a fraud. He's in the back pocket of the military-industrial complex and their lobbyists. This has nothing to do with peace. It's all about money. 850 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I got it. This is slightly off topic, but it kind of relates to what we're saying. This is from Dinesh D'Souza. And Dinesh is, as you know, not a bomb thrower. Dinesh is very meticulous, very careful with his information. And this goes to the heart of the Biden crime family. And what the Zelenskys have over him is just the tip of the iceberg. And to show you what a sick, corrupt, demented, perverse family they are, here is now the absolute latest. You got to hear this. According now to Dinesh D'Souza on X, quote, so Hunter Biden, who had an affair with the wife of his deceased brother, Beau, now admits to doing naked FaceTimes and keeping, listen to this, sexually explicit photos of Beau's 14-year-old daughter. That would be Hunter Biden's niece, Natalie. This is one sick family, according to Dinesh. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Literally, this is the tip of the iceberg. You're naked in front of your niece in very sexually explicit poses. and then you keep sexually nude, explicit photos of your niece who's 14 years old? You are one sick, perverted little puppy. Let me tell you that right now. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is, what do you think the Ukrainians have over him? I mean, I know there's financial crimes and bribery and treason and influence peddling. And I mean, they've got him 6 ways to Sunday. There's no question. But I don't think it's just financial. From everything now that's coming out, I mean, this is pedophilia. This is incest. I mean, these are some of the most unspeakable crimes and acts of evil you could possibly imagine. And I think it starts to explain why it's been $250 billion and counting, an unlimited blank check that Biden has given to Ukraine. And by the way, he's got 2 months left in his presidency. Secretary of State Blinken said this over the weekend, that their number one goal, their number one priority, what do you think it is? What do you think it is? It's to ensure that whatever money they could send to Ukraine gets sent to Ukraine before Trump enters the White House. Like wherever they can find a nickel here, a penny there, in this corner, whatever they can dig up, scrape up from any agency, however they can do it, funnel it to glory to Ukraine. Just keep funneling it to Ukraine. I'm telling you, I want to know how much the president has been being blackmailed by, and exactly what Zelensky and his cronies have over him. Because clearly what they have is so damaging and so devastating that he's now willing to risk literally World War III. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Pictures of your 14-year-old niece naked? Sexually explicit pictures of your niece? And that's just what he's admitting to? Say, we're not taking out the trash. You need an exterminator in there. You know, a fumigator. You gotta, all the rats, you gotta clean that place up like you've gotta sterilize that White House. 617-266-6868 is the number. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Andy.
Well, Jeff, as you've made your case over this morning, I'm finding myself not agreeing with you 100%. I'm finding myself agreeing with you 1,000%.
Thank you, Andy.
With that said, I would like to put this log on the fire with Professor Kuhner. Just the timeline over this remaining 60 days before President Trump takes power. The new Congress will be sworn in. It's either January 3rd, January 4th. And the question is, and I have to be a realist about political capital and how to best spend it. And political capital is going to be needed to get President Trump's top 5 cabinet picks through, especially Matt Gaetz and RFK Jr. And the question is, would pursuing an impeachment take away from the political capital needed to do that? Or, in your view, would we actually gain political capital by making an impeachment move?
Well, on this issue, it's not like, this is what I really want to be clear, Andy. It's not, hey, Biden's got 2 months left in his term, let's impeach the guy. It's what is his action based on yesterday. that he's now literally putting the entire world, and frankly the United States, that's all I care about, the United States and every American citizen at risk of a third world war. And I think that there's no question that he needs to be removed from office. Now, my argument is, I'm not trying to use impeachment, Andy, as a kind of a political tool. I'm just being realistic about it. Just the fact that the Republicans would even contemplate filing articles of impeachment would force the media and the entire country to pay attention to what Biden has just done. And if the country just pays attention, if they're just awakened up, just their eyes are opened, this is going to blow Biden out of the water. So you don't even have to get into an actual, get the House managers and make your case and have a trial in the Senate. Just the fact that Mike Johnson calls a press conference today, if he wants to, beside Trump at Mar-a-Lago, I don't care, and say, we are now thinking about pursuing articles of impeachment. And they're, what? Yeah. Why? Because he's threatening to blow us all up. That's why. And we want to know, what do the Ukrainians have over Joe Biden? Because there's no other country would you even contemplate doing something like this. And then once the American public hear, he's doing what? He want what? Our long-range missiles? What? Deep into Russia? What? You mean what? Blow up Moscow? Blow up the Kremlin? Are you mad? World War III? Has he lost his mind? So his popularity will go from whatever it is now, 30%, 28%. Biden's will go down to 0. And I'm telling you, it's going to force Democrats to denounce him because they're going to be done. Nobody can support this. So, Andy, what I'm just saying is, this is not hard. If the Republicans can show a unified front, make some noise, be vocal, go in front of cameras, and warn the country about what Biden has just done, public opinion is going to sway against the regime so decisively, that it'll destroy what's left of Biden's credibility. But they can't be silent. Now, I do agree with you on your larger point. I think Trump has a war on his hands, a political war. Matt Gaetz is now going to be very hard for him to confirm. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they're starting to line up against him. Pete Hegseth, there's now, and I knew this was coming because that's their playbook. They do that against every Republican, whether it be Supreme Court nominee or a more contentious cabinet appointment. So, Washington Post, last couple of days, came out with this BS, bogus, fake news story about some anonymous woman in 2017 who said that Pete Hegseth sexually assaulted her. So now they're claiming that Pete Hegseth is not fit to be Secretary of Defense based on this anonymous allegation of what took place 7 years ago. Even though the police investigated it, this was in California at the time at a conference, and they said there was no evidence to prove any sexual assault or rape took place. Apparently it was some kind of a consensual fling or one-night stand or whatever between Pete Hegseth and this woman at a conference. But now the Washington Post is running wild with it, Vanity Fair, the New York Times. This is CNN. The Democrats now say that they're going to go after Pete Hegseth on the grounds that he allegedly raped this woman. Now, I'm telling you, it's BS. It's another lie. They're trying to do to him what they did to Kavanaugh, which is smear, smear, smear. Now, they probably did have some kind of an encounter, but by all the evidence, it looks like it was consensual. Now, I don't approve of cheating on your wife. I don't approve of extramarital affairs. And apparently Hegseth had a lot to drink that night. So that also kind of was a contributing factor. But still, I've never, ever betrayed my wife, and I never will betray my wife. So, I'm not into people cheating on their wives. But it's not a crime to cheat on your wife. I mean, if it was a crime to cheat on your wife, Joe Biden wouldn't be president. As an example, Bill Clinton wouldn't be president. I could go on and list you countless Democratic politicians and members of the cabinet. So they're trying to turn a consensual one-night stand into an alleged rape. And they're trying to use that evidence to derail and destroy Pete Hegseth's confirmation as the Secretary of Defense. Why? Because he's going to go after the military-industrial complex. He's going to cut down the deep state to size. And that's the one thing they don't want. And so that's what I told Grace. I go, you watch. Now they're going to have women coming out of the woodwork. All of them anonymous. We don't know their names. All of this stuff that took place years ago. And that the police investigated, and when they investigated said, there's no rape here. There's no sexual assault here. There may have been hanky-panky, but hanky-panky between two consulting adults, it's not a crime. So they're going to go after Pete Hegseth. They're going to go after him hard. They're going to go after RFK Jr. They're going to go after Matt Gaetz. They want to torpedo his key nominees. Now notice, they're not going to go after neocon Marco Rubio. Anybody who's more establishment or neoconservative, you can have a million affairs. You can have the craziest views on vaccines or whatever. You could believe whatever you want to believe. But if you dare challenge the status quo, they are going to ruin and destroy you. And so Trump is going to have a real fight on his hands. And he's going to have to ask himself, how much political capital do I want to expend? Now, my advice to him is he should let the Senate know, I'm going to get my picks. If you're not going to vote for my picks, I'm going to recess appointment my picks. But I'm getting my picks. I won. I have a mandate. The American people want this cabinet. I'm going to give them this cabinet. In other words, he's got to realize you got to play hardball. And someone needs to tell Lisa Murkowski and John Thune and Susan Collins and that whole gang, they didn't win this election. Trump won this election. And he deserves the cabinet that he picks. It's his administration. It should be his cabinet. Final word to you, Andy.
Well, there's already been talk about getting a number of these picks confirmed before we even get to January 20th. And to reemphasize the point, the new Congress will be sworn in. It's either January 3rd or January 4th. And when that happens, they just need to hit the ground running with hardball and just ram as many of them as they can before we even get to January 20th.
I agree. I completely agree. Look, this is unprecedented, what they're trying to do to him. And maybe, again, my naivete is showing. I'm sorry. It's just, I'm not that satanic. I'm not that diabolical. I'm not evil. I'm just not. I don't think like they think. I would never risk a nuclear war, for God's sake, and the lives of millions of people to prevent the man from entering office. I just don't think like that. I don't want to think like that. So, they tried to frame him as an agent of Russia, but this is way beyond now framing as an agent of Russia. This is starting a world war in order to cripple his presidency and, blow it up right there on the launch pad. And so you're right, Andy. He's got to get his people in there ASAP. Right away. Andy, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Rich in Cambridge. Thanks for holding, Rich, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. I have two questions for you. One is,
Yes.
can Trump just pick up the phone and call Zelensky and Putin and say, this isn't going to happen, you can't do it? And the second question is, what's to stop Putin from giving long-range missiles to North Korea and striking us? Is it no different than what we're doing with Ukraine? We're giving them tactical weapons to strike Russia.
Well, I mean, Rich, just think about it. If we were at war with North Korea, just imagine we were, and the Russians were supplying them with the most sophisticated missiles in the world, hypersonic missiles that the Russian military was controlling, guiding. I mean, it's not really the North Koreans firing them. It's the Russian military firing them just from North Korean soil. And these missiles are obliterating, say, Seattle or Portland or Los Angeles. What do you think our response would be? We wouldn't just blame North Korea. We would blame Russia, rightly so, right? We would say the Russians are now at war with us, and we are at war with the Russians. It would literally spark World War III. That's exactly what we're doing in Ukraine. Now, the problem that Trump has is the Democrats are going to try to use the Logan Act. If he directly calls Putin or Zelensky and says, look, we got a peace conference coming, just everybody calm down, knock it off, hold your fire, everybody hold their fire, and we'll get through this the moment I'm inaugurated. The Democrats could claim that Trump is trying to sabotage or undermine Biden's foreign policy. So my recommendation to Trump, no problem, don't make the call. Make your intermediaries make the call. Elon, for example, could make the call. And everybody would know that Elon's message is coming from Trump, but nothing is said that way. And Elon calls up Zelensky and says, look, I'm just calling on no one else's behalf but mine. Wink, wink. You fire one missile into Russia, just one, we're going to cut you off at the knees. You're not going to get any more money, any more missiles, any more military aid, any more of our military equipment. You're going to be fighting the Russians on your own. Good luck. Good luck. And I think what Trump needs to do is hold a press conference, address the media, and say, hey, look, Biden can do whatever he wants. He's the president. I'm telling you, these are the consequences. To Zelensky, you go ahead with these missile strikes. And if from this point forward, I'm going to give you nothing in military aid when I come into power. Nothing. No money, no military aid, no weapons, zero. Zero. Do you understand? Zero. So guide yourself accordingly. You're a big boy, and, you have to think of the consequences of your actions. Trump can do all of these things, and if he does, hopefully sober heads in Kiev are going to prevail. My point is, he's got to ring the alarm bell. He's got to start ringing that alarm bell. Because if everybody just keeps acting like, hey, we just got to wait till January 20th, believe me, I think the Ukrainians and the Russians may have a Christmas surprise for everybody. Final word to you, my friend.
Don't you also think, Putin's not a stupid man. He's got to know Trump's going to be in office soon, so regardless what Ukraine does, he's going to hold his fire back and just wait till the next administration comes forward and changes the whole landscape of what's happening. No?
Well, yeah, you're right, and he's been fairly restrained up to now. But and this is the threat of these missiles, they can take out the Kremlin like this. Within 2 minutes, it's gone. Massive chunks, swaths of Moscow, gone. So if missiles start raining on Moscow, the Russian people aren't going to say to Putin, well, just wait 2 months because Trump's coming to power. They're going to say, Vladimir, we're in a war. You got to finish it. Go nuclear. The nationalists are going to demand that he go nuclear. His supporters are going to demand that he go nuclear. That's why what Biden did was the height of irresponsibility and recklessness. And that's why the Republicans and Trump need to respond and reply now. 9:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. I'm going to continue to take your calls, I promise. However, this nomination, let's put it this way, of Pete Hegseth as Trump's Secretary of Defense is now getting increasingly in hot water. So, as I mentioned last segment, the Washington Post first broke the story. It was clearly a leak. Hegseth's people and his lawyer have said they believe it comes from inside in the Trump transition team, somebody that wants to derail and sink Hegseth's nomination to be the next Secretary of Defense. Now remember, Hegseth is a longtime 20-year military veteran. He served multiple tours of duty in Iraq, in Afghanistan, Guantanamo Bay. He's a Fox News host on the weekends. Also does a lot of work on Fox News in general. He has written several best-selling books, including how woke ideology is destroying our military. And as he said, if he is confirmed as Secretary of Defense, he will make the American military the most lethal fighting force in the world, and he will end wokeism in the military, as well as DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as critical race theory. So everything that Biden, Milley, Obama tried to do to wokeify our military, Pete Hegseth is determined to undo. That has made him some very powerful enemies. So, according now, this is what Hegseth's own lawyer is now telling anyone who will listen. In 2017, Hegseth was invited. He was then on Fox. He was the host of Fox News' Fox and Friends. He was invited to speak at an event hosted by the California Federation of Republican Women. It was a conference in Monterey, California. At the event, after it was done, he and event organizers were at a bar where, according to Hegseth and his lawyer, they admit he had, quote unquote, too many drinks. So apparently he had a couple too many. He admits this. And one of the women there who was part of this organization, apparently on video and through multiple eyewitnesses, was sober at the time. She was not drinking with him. She was not intoxicated at all. She was completely stone cold sober. She apparently said, I will take him back to his room. And they could be seen arm in arm. She's holding his arm, and he's kind of, he's kind of staggering a little bit. He's not walking very straight. Let's put it that way. And according now to Pete Hegseth, she took advantage of him. She led him to the room. He was drunk. He admits that he was drunk. She grabbed him, took him to the room, and then, according to Hegseth, they had consensual sex. That apparently this woman was married at the time, and after they had their sexual, fling, had a roll in the hay, as they say, she was too embarrassed should her husband find out because she was not in her hotel room that night. So she then claimed that Hegseth had raped her, had sexually assaulted her in that hotel room. The police were called to the scene. According to the police officers who came and arrived on the scene, they said that there was no evidence whatsoever that any rape or sexual assault took place. If anything, the police concluded that she had taken advantage of him. Now, and they asked Hegseth, well, do you want to charge her with sexual assault or rape? And Hegseth's like, well, no, I'm not going to say to this woman I was raped. What, are you serious? So, no. Now, this incident happened, as this is the key point that the lawyer is making, Hegseth's lawyer, at the height of the Me Too movement. And in particular, very high-profile men in the media were the focus of these sexual harassment and sexual assault allegations, and many of them folded and paid out big settlements. Apparently, it all went dark. After that, for several years, no one heard from this accuser. By the way, she still remains completely anonymous. However, she then lost her job at that organization. This was about in 2020. And so she then reached out to Hegseth and said that if he did not pay her, she would go public with the allegations that he had raped her. Then, apparently, according to Hegseth's lawyer, they sent her a cease and desist letter back in 2020. Hegseth was worried that should she go public with an allegation, Fox would fire him. So they decided to reach a settlement. She was paid some money in exchange for signing a non-disclosure agreement. And here we are. 9:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you, Kuhner Country. What do you make now of these accusations being hurled at Pete Hegseth? And do you think Trump should drop his nomination, or should he expend political capital to get Hegseth confirmed as Secretary of Defense? Many of you are texting, emailing the Kuhner Man, saying, Jeff, at the time of this alleged, whatever you want to call it, one-night stand, Pete Hegseth was not married. The accuser was. Hegseth was not married at the time. So anyway, I said earlier about I've never had an affair on my wife, which is true. I never have had an affair on my wife. I never hope to God I never will have an affair on my wife. But Hegseth is on his third wife. They have numerous children from previous marriages and together. He is known as a bit of a ladies' man. I mean, that's just his reputation, and he's admitted that. But he's never been known as a sexual predator or as someone who rapes or assaults women. That has never been part of his reputation. In fact, quite the contrary. It's consensual. It's always been consensual. Now, according to multiple eyewitnesses and to the video, he did have too many drinks. There's no question. She, though, had, either no drinks or one drink. She was very sober. And according to Hegseth's lawyer, she was the aggressor. That's the term that he uses. She volunteered to take him to the room. She grabbed him by the arm. She made sure they went up the elevator. She's the one that insisted that she put him into the room. And the question then is, what happened in that room? She is alleging, again, anonymously, no name to her whatsoever, that she was sexually assaulted/raped. He says they was consensual. The police who came the next day said they saw no evidence of rape. So the question now is this enough to derail Pete Hegseth's nomination? Should it derail Pete Hegseth's nomination? Now, just to put an exclamation point, she then went dark for a couple of years, never mentioned it again, and then in 2020, when she lost her job, she then reached out to Hegseth and said, I will go public with my accusations that you raped me. And of course, this was all during the height of the Me Too movement. So according to Hegseth and his lawyer, Hegseth was petrified that Fox News wouldn't stand behind him, that if she went public with an allegation, they would fire him. So they decided to get into mediation, and then there was a settlement. He paid her, and in exchange, she signed a non-disclosure agreement and vowed to never go public with this again. The lawyer of Hegseth is now saying that if she puts her name to these allegations, or if she goes public, she has broken the non-disclosure agreement, and she's going to end up in court, and she's going to lose all of her money that she got from Hegseth. So basically, you signed an agreement, you said you weren't going to say anything, and now someone somewhere leaked it. My question to you, do you believe these allegations, or do you think it's a blatant hit job? And should or will this disqualify Pete Hegseth from being the next Secretary of Defense? 617-266-6868. You know my position on this. I think it's garbage. I think it's what the Democrats do every single time. They come up with some woman anonymously, going back years and years and years, and then they try to lie and destroy someone through false allegations and innuendo. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Let's go to Patrick in the great state of New York. Thanks for holding, Patrick, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, my voice is a little weak. I'm sorry. But this is how I look at things. The first guiding principle is no one person is above the agenda. No one person is bigger than MAGA. So this is the strategy that I would pursue. Matt Gaetz is too damaged. We got to send him DTFR down the frickin' road. He's too damaged. He will never get confirmed. And you mentioned, say, going to Lisa Murkowski and Jeff Thune. There is no favors in Washington. There's only deals. So you may go to Lisa Murkowski, and she will sit there and go, what is it worth to you, buddy? And I don't think that Matt Gaetz is worth trading away the agenda. With respect to Pete Hegseth, I would do the following. I would tell the Trump should conduct his own investigation. Hegseth has to make everything available to him. The non-disclosure agreement, he has to go get the videos, he has to go get the police reports, everything. He has to go interview the cops and make sure everything is nailed down. Then you go to the woman and you say, if you crack the book, we're going to read this cover to cover. We are going to destroy your life. There is no, you do not have the privilege of accusing people of rape and then doing it anonymously. And then I'd go to the United States Senate and say, even though I'm not a fan of Hegseth, as you know, I don't think the administration can afford to look weak like they did in the Clinton situation where they got marked as kind of wimps. You cannot look weak. You got to say that I am going to fight and I'm going to fight ugly. What do you think?
Well, Patrick, look, I think you put your finger on it. You can't just allow, and this is what the Democrats this is the precedent they keep trying to establish, that you can have some woman anonymously, without putting her name to it, just accuse someone of rape, of something that goes back years and years and years ago, and all of a sudden be automatically believed and destroy that person's career and reputation. Because then everybody's a sitting duck. I mean, then they can destroy anybody and everybody. So I think if you're going to accuse someone of rape, then put your name to it at a bare minimum. Put your whole name behind it. And I think, Patrick, there's something else that I think is really casting a long shadow over all of this. Look at the women that lied about Trump. How many of them came out and said that he raped her, that he raped them, or, had inappropriate touching or contact or sexual assaults? So Trump looks at something like this and said, yeah, they tried to railroad me through these constant lies and accusations that weren't true. and they're going to try to do the same thing to Hegseth. And I'm just not going to let him go down. Now, I agree with you. He's got to dot his I's and cross his T's. He's got to make sure they get the police reports. He's got to sit Hegseth down and say, hey, look, I need to know from you, just you, me, and these four walls, what the hell happened that night 7 years ago in Monterey, California? Because if I'm going to go to war over you, I'm going to go to war because you're innocent. So we can drop this and spare you a lot of embarrassment if something else happened in that room. But if it truly was consensual, and she was like, quote unquote, the aggressor, she wanted to have sleep with you, she wanted to bring you into that hotel room, she volunteered, then we're gonna defend you all the way. But Hegseth has got to be very upfront with him. And I agree, don't trust but verify. Go interview the people at the hotel, look at the surveillance video yourself, talk to the police, look at the report. If you can, speak to the accuser as well, and you let her know. I agree with you. Hey, look, lady, if you're going to lie, if you're going to pull a Christine Blasey Ford and you're going to lie, get ready to get your life destroyed, because we're sick and tired of this. This is all you Democrats do. You wait years and years and years and years. And by the way, she had no problem taking the money. See, that's the other reason why I don't believe her. If she was genuinely raped, as she claims, and apparently the lawyers said they're going to release the figure, it was a very small figure in terms of the settlement. So they're saying, it wasn't like we paid her $1 million. He goes, believe me, it was a very small settlement. So I'm sorry. If I was raped, I'd want justice. I wouldn't take $50,000. I'm making that figure up. I don't know what he paid her. But my point is, I wouldn't take some rinky-dink settlement. So if she was genuinely raped, we go to court. Instead, she took the money. So she's anonymous. She takes the money. She signs a non-disclosure. But now, this story is back in the media and they're trying to use it to sink him? No. It's time to take the gloves off. Patrick, as always, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Pete Hegseth in hot water. Your calls next. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, many of you are messaging and texting the Kuhner man saying, Jeff, 2 words, Tara Reid. Do I think Biden digitally raped her? You better believe it. You better believe it. And, that they had no problem putting Biden in the Oval Office. Even after those explosive allegations, frankly, I believe her completely. So suddenly now what? And Tara Reid put her name to the accusation and was very specific and very detailed and had multiple contemporaneous witnesses. But that was no problem. For Joey, that was no problem. Let me read. This is from 603. You can text us 70470 about this whole Pete Hegseth affair. Jeff, let me ask you this. We know that there's a fund for members of Congress, the House and the Senate, provided by us, the taxpayers, to pay off anyone accusing these politicians of sexual assault. We know it's been paid out many, many times. Here's my question. Have any of these payouts ever cost any politician up on Capitol Hill a re-election? So, you want to talk about the pot calling, and 603 is dead on. You want to talk about the pot calling the kettle black. So you guys are going to stand in judgment of Pete Hegseth after you're using our money? Say what you want about Pete Hegseth. And look, you want my honest opinion? I think he had too much to drink, which is why I always tell people don't drink too much because your judgment is horrible, but let that go. She apparently was an attractive woman in her 30s. She was married. He was not. She took him to the room. Yes, I think there was consensual. It was sex. It was consensual sex. She had an extramarital affair on her husband. He was divorced at the time. And, 6 sheets to the wind, and, human nature took court, took a play, human nature took its course. And, he admitted it. He said, no, look, it was consensual, but I didn't touch, I didn't rape her. And so that's what I think honestly happened. Now she had to cover it up with her husband. Plus, she saw the possibility of a gravy train. She saw the possibility of lining her pockets. And now I think it's gone beyond that to being ideological. We can knock Pete Hegseth off if we just yell, scream, and make baseless accusations. Well, I'm sorry, but if politicians on Capitol Hill are going to be using our money, Pete Hegseth with that settlement with her, that came from his pocket. He didn't have her sign a non-disclosure agreement with our money. He had her sign an NDA with his money. So that's ultimately his business and hers. But those sleazeball scumbag politicians on the Hill, it's with our money. And we're talking dozens and dozens and dozens of non-disclosure agreements, of illicit extramarital and all kinds of other sleazy affairs. And that hasn't cost them any re-election, hasn't cost them their job. So why should it cost Pete Hegseth's job? Agree, disagree, am I wrong? 617-266-6868. Frank in Hanson. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Jeff, first time caller, and guess
Welcome,
what? You
Frank.
stole my you stole my thunder. I'm a deplorable garbage man. Also, say was that remember when Jesus bent down? The Pharisees were going to stone the adulterers, and he bent down on the ground and he started writing. He said, "Ye who will not sin, cast the first stone." He looked up and they were all gone. So that's the first part. The second part was I was going to tell you about the slush fund in Congress. Let's release that and see what happens. Guaranteed he'll get in like crazy. There'll be no doubt about it. These people, I'm sick of them. They're going to cause World War III, Jeff. I'm sorry, but that's what they're going to cause. We have to get Trump with all his picks in, and God bless America, Jeff. And I just started listening to you the last 6 months. A friend of mine said, you got to listen to this guy. So I started listening to you, and I'm not a radio guy, and I love you. And every time I would call you, I can never get through. I was on the phone in the car. And God bless you, Jeff. Keep doing what you're going to do, and I'll call you back in the future. Jeff, if I wanted to send you something written, where do I send it to?
Do me a favor, Frank. Hang on, and Sandy will talk to you, and she'll give you my email address. Or if you want to write to me a letter or something, she'll give you the actual address. So just hang on. And Frank, thank you very, very much for that call. I appreciate it. Frank is completely right. Look, really, he's 1,000% correct. And just to bring this whole thing full circle, Hegseth is completely on board with Trump to ending the war in Ukraine. He's openly said that. And he wants to rebuild the American military. And he said, look, as an American fighting man who served in multiple wars, multiple deployments, I know how badly depleted our military stockpile is. We gave it all away to Ukraine. So he says we have to end this war and rebuild our own military. And that's another reason why he is persona non grata in Washington. So do I believe he raped her? No way. Okay? It's garbage. It's garbage. And if I'm Hegseth and Trump, you fight this all the way, baby. On that happy note, I gotta go. Bye-bye.